All right, let's dive in here. Let's try to go through these two lineups, the question marks. Let's start with, in fact, let's go head to head. Let's throw a little bit of a curveball here. Goalkeepers, no question. Thibaut Courtois, Alisson. For me, it's pretty much even between the two.
Yep.
Nobody's going to argue with that, right?
Nope. Two best goalkeepers in the world right now.
Okay. Real Madrid's defense versus Liverpool's attack. We're assuming that Alaba is fit.
Yep.
The indication is that he is fit, and that he will start. Again, you have a similar question, what we talked about before, and how much training has he done. I think he probably could have played earlier.
Yeah.
I think he just focused on the training.
Yeah, I agree.
So the way this back four, we've got Dani Carvajal, I think, is going to start.
Yeah.
There's no question of Lucas Vazquez or anything weird like that. Eder Militão and Alaba in the middle, and your boy Ferland Mendy on the right.
Yeah, on the left.
On the left, obviously. Speaking on the right, because you've got the Liverpool front three. And here, there's a bit more variety. I think we take it as read that Salah is fit. They kept him off the bench and stuff, but I assume we have to think it's for the final.
Yeah.
Salah, Mane, and then a third actor, Jota, Diaz, Firmino.
Diaz, I would think at the moment. Yeah,
definitely.
Diaz, I think, is the player that they would pick because he's the one in form. He's the one that's going past people with the ball. He seems to be full of confidence. Jota's just gone off the boil slightly, so I think it will be Diaz.
And if you look how he struggled against Mbappe in the two Real Madrid PSG games, when with Diaz in terms of pace only has a similar ability than Mbappe, I think you know that if you're Klopp, you put Diaz on Carvajal's side every day.
But the big question is, how do they cope with Salah? Do they do what they did in the Champions League final a couple of years or 3 years ago when they say to the fullback, who was Marcelo, I think, you can go forward and you can go and play, and you can, in this case, go and play against Alexander-Arnold, and then you bring your second centre-half out, Alaba, to come out and deal with Salah, because Salah likes to make those runs from outside to in. So that's key, how Ancelotti decides to deal with Salah and Alexander-Arnold down that right-hand side.
Yeah, I set this whole thing up sort of Liverpool attack versus Real Madrid defense. In some ways, it's kind of silly because when you speak of the Liverpool attack, you have to speak of Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold because it's intrinsically part of it. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Do you leave Mendy on Salah and try to get the midfielder to pick up Alexander-Arnold? That's very difficult to do.
And the midfielder is Toni Kroos. He's on the left-hand side of the three, so he's the player that would have to go out to Alexander-Arnold. He's a great footballer, Toni Kroos. He's not a good defender these days. He hasn't got the athleticism. Alexander-Arnold would skip past him and get cross after cross into the box. So I think he might go and be a bit more adventurous and put Mendy higher up the field and bring Alaba across to cope with the runs of Salah.
And it's not Vinicius who's going to, I think, follow the runs from Alexander-Arnold, because this is not what he does. He's not the most hard-working defensively left.
But they don't want him to work hard. They don't want him to come back.
Exactly.
That's their counter-attacking ploy. They're going to leave him up the field. You know, I've seen a lot of Real Madrid this season, and he almost plays just as an outside left.
But the question is, will Klopp say to Alexander-Arnold, don't worry about Vinicius, we'll deal with that when Real Madrid get the ball back and see how much we can counter-press them so they don't play on the counter? Or does he say to Alexander-Arnold, be careful, look where Vinicius is, don't go maybe too high at the beginning of the game or something like that. We have to be very careful. Whoever is that right midfielder for Liverpool will have to be careful and look at Vinicius or Matip or Konate as well. It'd be very interesting because Alexander-Arnold, because of Vinicius and the way Vinicius will set up, might not have the same freedom as usual to go forward and create much from when Liverpool have the ball as usual.
Like I said, these areas are interlinked, and it almost doesn't make sense to go and talk about them in segments. But, you know, we're at that stage. We've gone down that road. I want to ask another question about the Liverpool attack, though. Sadio Mane, if he's going to play through the middle against these two center-backs, we expect him still to move around a lot to try to draw them out, especially if Alaba is going to go and help on Salah. Do you then necessarily need to ask Casemiro almost to become a third centre-back in that situation?
Well, what Casemiro, he won't always go back in between the centre-halves. What he does, Casemiro, does it brilliantly. He gets out on the outside of them at times.
Yeah.
So when the ball's switched to one of the wide players for Liverpool, he'll almost go in behind his fullback at times. He does the job brilliantly. When crosses come into the box, he always seems to be in the right place at the right time to make that early clearance. If I was Mane, I'd go up against Alaba, because I've seen a lot of him this season. Alaba, again, great footballer, but he just lacks that half a yard of pace, which Mane can get away from. Eder Militão, I think he's had an excellent season. He looks strong. He looks as though he's confident. I would go up against Alaba at the moment.
Interesting choice to find weakness in the magic that is Alaba in my presence.
And he's not fit. And he's not fit either.
He's not
properly fit.
Okay, so I'll give you the it's not fully fit pass on that one. When we move into midfield, we touched upon the midfield a little bit before. You talked about the importance of that right-sided midfielder in Liverpool's trio, and whatever instruction Klopp gives him to go and help out on Vinicius.
Yeah, and it could be also the holding midfield player. You know, that the holding midfield player has to get out there as well. But when you're playing with a midfield...
the holding midfielder player runs out there, isn't there a risk then that's when Benzema drops? That's when Modric steps into it? I don't know that you want... I mean, I at least as I see it, if I have Fabinho, I say, dude, just go and do what you do better than anybody else.
But the problem is, if you're pressing with a midfield three and you get played around and it goes out to Vinicius Junior, probably the nearest player to him midfield wise will be the holding midfield player. It won't be the player that's pressing the ball high up the field, so it's going to have to be Fabinho, or it could be Henderson if he's playing in that role. They're the ones that are going to have to come out, and also Vinicius Junior gives them a chance because he comes back onto his right foot. So as soon as he comes back onto his right foot, that gives you half a second to recover that little bit more.
Fabinho's fitness, I know it's obvious, but he's the key here. Against Villarreal, not so much the first half because they all struggled, but he's the best at cutting off counter-attacks from the opposition team. This is how it's so good. The vision and his understanding of the game and where the ball is going to go is so good. But if he's only 70% fit or 50% fit, how can he do that? And I think this is where you have to worry about for Liverpool.
I'm interested in what's happening on the other flank, where obviously he's got three. The one, it's always the big question mark, right? With Real Madrid, 10 out of 11. 10 out of 11 places in the starting 11 are set. And then that right wing position, what we want to call it, is it Fede Valverde? Is it Marco Asensio? Is it Rodrigo? What we've seen thus far is that it's often Fede Valverde. It's usually Fede Valverde. And then they need to come to behind, and then here comes Rodrigo or Asensio. I'm wondering, so you've got Andy Robertson, who may not be Trent Alexander-Arnold, but also spends a lot of time up the pitch and makes a big attacking contribution. The logical thing on paper is, all right, Valverde can stay with Robertson defensively. So that would make sense, and then we got a four when we attack. Is there an argument to be made that maybe this is where I throw you a curve? This is where I unleash Rodrigo? So then I've got two threats behind?
I don't think he's going to do that. I think he'll play with Valverde. And Valverde's got an important job because not only has he got to stop the runs from Robertson, he's also got to tuck in alongside his other midfield players because Modric and Kroos aren't particularly good defensively. So that's what he does in games. He comes in. And then he's also got to, when the ball's with the two Liverpool centre-backs, he's got to get himself in a position where he stops the ball going into Diaz. He's got so many things to think about, Valverde, defensively, that he has to play. If you play Rodrigo or Asensio, Liverpool could dominate that left-hand side. And
he ran against City in that second leg for 120 minutes. I think he ran 15 kilometers or something crazy, which you really need. I think in a final like this, you need someone who be able to cover up everywhere, fill the gaps, block the ball, run, cover. Even if it's for no reason, the ball doesn't come that way, but at least he would have made that run, which prevents the ball to get to Robertson or something. So and
you're also talking about Casemiro at times going deep in between his centre-backs or going out wide. So Valverde has to tuck in at times to make it a midfield three because Casemiro might drop into his back line.
We're predicating all this on Liverpool having the bulk of the ball. And this is what the script says in terms of what we've seen before. However, if you play Valverde, if you're Real Madrid, you've got an extra man. It's 4 against 3. And you've got full-backs who are also comfortable with the ball, who can help out. And you've got Benzema. And you've got Kroos and Modric, who are two of the best passers of the ball around. Is there a scenario where maybe Ancelotti says, you know what? We're going to keep the ball, and we'll dare you. You want to counter-press, you want to press us, we'll dare you to come and get it off us. You, Thiago Alcantara, half fit. Fabinho, half fit. Let's dare you to come and foul us and pick up yellows. Could he institute that approach?
Well, I saw Man City do that in the Cup semi-final and got absolutely roasted because every time they tried to play it from the back, Liverpool pressed them, won the ball back. The goalkeeper made a mistake. I think that would be a dangerous game to play.
And that's Man City, who have a couple ballers in the middle of the park, right?
Yeah. So I would say the key to it is Modric is brilliant at manipulating the ball Himself half of a second to play that next forward pass. Toni Kroos can do exactly the same. Casemiro not quite so much. And Benzema, when the ball goes up to Benzema, sometimes you think there's no way he can keep hold of that, but he manipulates the ball, he moves away, and then that allows everybody to go 5-10 yards further up the field. So I think, yes, they will still play on the counter-attack, but they will have to be clever with the ball and have to be good to play around the pressure of Liverpool.
Now the Real Madrid attack, Liverpool defense. Maybe there is a bit of a question mark there, although I personally think Matip is going to start. Do you guys agree that, or is there still a question, Matip or Konate?
I think there's a big question mark,
Yeah. Who would you want? When Vinicius Jr. is running
Completely.
1v1, he might go, Alexander-Arnold's high up the field. He's in a wide area. Which of the two centre-halves would you like into a wide area? I think Konate, he's got more pace. Probably a better 1v1 defender. Matip's a very good centre-back, but I wouldn't fancy him out in wide areas.
The only thing that makes me doubt a little bit is that we've seen, and even in the last game against Wolves, Konate making that mistake on the Wolves goal, and he still has that in him because he's still so young, and this is all new to him. He's never played before in a game like that with that kind of pressure and expectations and things at stake. So
that was my thinking too, because you're not going to match up with Vinicius athletically, not these center backs.
No.
Whether it's Vinicius or Konate or Matip. And then positional play and understanding between the center backs and the way they relate to the full backs becomes so important. And so Matip being more experienced, having had more minutes with Van Dijk, that's why I think he might go in that direction. But I agree with you guys. It is a toss-up. There's pros and cons to both. Do we take it as read that Vinicius, well, we said it about 10 times. So Vinicius is just going to sit there and give them something to think about.
on the halfway line when Liverpool are attacking, he's going to stay.
And Benzema is going to do that thing that you love to say.
Ah.
He's number 9 and number 10 in Ballon d'Or. Yeah.
Kareem the Dream!
There we go.
Will be there, of course. Yeah, it will be because, like we said, after the semi-final, Real Madrid had a long time to prepare for this final. They didn't care about the last La Liga games. They didn't care about anything when Liverpool were under pressure to try to get to beat City and win the title. So Kareem has plenty of treatment, plenty of everything to be ready for this game. This has to be his game. If he wants to win the Ballon d'Or with everything that he's achieved already this season, this is where one more time he has to carry that team to go and win this trophy.
I don't think there's any question in my mind. I've written this. You guys may disagree that this was the priority for Jurgen Klopp. It might have been different if they had a chance, if they hadn't been behind City and chasing them. So he's put his eggs into this basket, and the way he did with the FA Cup basket. And so we got to see a lot of the Liverpool bench in these games. And I wonder, given how important substitutions were to Real Madrid in the games, does Real Madrid have the edge on the bench?
Well, I think to a certain degree, Real Madrid know what their substitutions are going to be. I think we could almost pick them. We know that if Valverde plays at some point, if they're losing the game, Rodrigo would come on. So I think he's done a very good job, Ancelotti, with his substitutions. I don't think it's great tactically. He doesn't have to think about it. There's a straight swap, him for him, and it seems to work for them. They've done it well in La Liga games. They've done it well in Europe. It's been good from Ancelotti.
For me, this game is going to be won off the bench. I don't think the two starting 11, I think it'll be a great game and we'll love it, but for me the game is going to be won by substitutions. Who's coming in? Whether Camavinga and Rodrigo will have more of an impact than Jota and Firmino especially. I think Firmino can hold the key. He's going to come on at some point, like we saw against Aston Villa, different game of course, but he still has that in him for 20 minutes or 30 minutes maybe if there's extra time to be able to turn a game on his head. And for me, this game is going to be won on substitutions when you make them.
Camavinga for Kroos, that's the substitution that he makes every so often.
Look at the impact that Camavinga had in all those semi-finals, quarter-finals, even last 16 against PSG. It was unbelievable for someone so young.
Here's my thing when it comes to the substitutions, because ultimately these are men, these are human beings on the pitch, and this is the biggest game of the season, biggest game in the football calendar, in club football certainly this year. Some players are easy to take off than others. So, when it comes to Real Madrid, because they've had so much success with the Rodrigo, Camavinga, even Asensio substitutions coming in, there's a certain understanding. Even Toni Kroos, who, of course, when he's been substituted this year, didn't always look happy.
No.
But you accept it because it's been there and it has worked. When I look at Liverpool's strength and depth with the strikers, and I agree with you on Firmino, and obviously Jota's there as well, who gives you something different. I mean, it takes cojones to take off Salah and Mane in a game like this. And so I just wonder, and obviously Klopp is a brave man, but he's also a human being. He also knows that these guys can turn games on their head. I almost wonder if he's a little bit, and then those I think are Liverpool's better substitutes because I think there's a lot less depth in the middle of the park. I wonder if he's a little more hamstrung in the freedom to make changes.
I can see what you're saying, but if you're a good manager, you assess the game and say, today it's not going to happen for Salah. Today it's not going to happen for Mane. He's off the pace. He's not playing particularly well. I've got to make the substitution. But I think you're right as well. Probably if they were taking one of the front three off, it's usually Diaz, and Jota would come on for him.
This is Liverpool's 63rd game of the season, which means we've said it before, but they've played every single game they could have played this season. 63, not all of them have played 63, but it's a long season. And I think even if you're Salah and Mane and you've got that adrenaline to play that final and start it, if you go down to the 110th minute because there's extra time, I don't think you can begrudge your manager to make those changes thinking like this can win.
If it goes to extra time, I agree. I just think it's a different argument if you're at the 60-minute mark and it's a tight game.
That's not going to happen. He's not going to change Mane or Salah.
Well, that's what I mean. Whereas I think Ancelotti might make those changes if he sees fit.
Yeah, maybe.
And Ancelotti, he knows that Kroos can't last the pace these days. So Camavinga coming on for Toni Kroos is a good one. Valverde, if he's had to do a load of running, then Rodrigo, Asensio come on that right-hand side and add a little bit more dynamism for them.
All right, we've focused on the inside baseball nitty-gritty tactics here. There are narratives here too. The one obviously we've been talking about Mbappe, Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, and Roberto Firmino as well. They're all unsigned beyond 2023.
Yeah.
Salah inevitably has been linked to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
He came out and he said, no, I'm definitely staying next season, Jules.
Yeah.
I read it as I wouldn't expect him to say anything else. Because
definitely not.
You want to be in a position where you get the kind of, even if whether you want to stay or not, you want to get the kind of contract that means you're happy to stay at Liverpool, right? So obviously you're going to say that. You're not going to destabilize anybody before a major final.
Exactly.
But you could get a situation, if they're far apart on their contract, and we don't know what the situation there is, and Real Madrid really want him, or another club, and they put a lot of money, it could be Liverpool ushering him to the door at some point.
To be fair to the question, what's going to happen to your future? There's two answers and two different approaches. One that Mane took, one that Salah took. Salah said, I'll be here regardless if I sign a new deal now or not. Right answer, as you said. Mane said, let's talk about that after the final. Right answer again. But you're right. I think there's still tricky situation that we can't ignore for Liverpool in the sense, okay, what do you do this summer? Because Salah can stay, but you take a risk of losing him for free when you can easily get 50 million minimum for him this summer from Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or whoever else.
Especially because Real Madrid are sitting on a big pile of cash that they had set aside for your boy Mbappe.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be, once again, a poker game between Liverpool, Salah's agent as well on what do we do, because I think there is urgency more than what Mo Salah kind of said in his answer.
Mo Salah is the perfect fit for Real Madrid, in my view, because we spoke about it last night. You want somebody that can play on the right-hand side, but also if Benzema, after 3 games, gets a bad injury, he can also play at centre-forward. And all the players that we've talked about, the only one that can do both jobs, well, Mane can do both jobs, but not from the right-hand side, is Salah. So he's good. He makes them better when they've got Vinicius Junior, they've got Benzema, Salah. And if Benzema can't play, Salah goes through the middle and Rodrigo comes on the right-hand side.
I think the big call from Real Madrid is, I think Salah makes sense if you think you can reload and retool and go for another Champions League next season. And obviously they have money. They've already brought in Rudiger. They're going to bring in, they're close to the Chouameni deal. Keeps rumbling on. And then maybe it doesn't matter that he's 30 and Benzema's older, because you say, all right, you come here, 3-4 year deal. You've just turned 30, 50 million. We amortize that. It's worth it. The alternative is you put a lot of money on the table and you get a younger guy, bearing in mind you're going to have to replace Benzema as well. Issue with younger player, Jules, is, and this is the Benzema issue, if I go and I pursue somebody like, I don't know, Osimhen or whatever, he plays center forward. I'm not going to move Benzema to the wing. Am I going to keep him on the bench for a season? That's a tough call.
It is, which I think Erling Haaland, for example, probably surely had that discussion as well with his dad and with his people, saying, okay, I would like to go to Real Madrid, but I'm going to sit on the bench. He can't play on the right-hand side. They're going to go play with the front two either. So I think it's difficult. That's why I agree with Stu in the sense that if you can find someone who can play wide or centrally, whether it's Salah or someone else, like Mbappe, it's perfect.
Because Ancelotti's he can't change what has been so good about Real Madrid with Benzema and Vinicius Junior down that side. You can't interrupt that. They've been brilliant. So it'd be a strange decision if he tried to cut those two away.
Yeah.
Final question. There've been very little. It's been very little in the way of mind games and stuff like that before that, but it doesn't mean they may not manifest themselves before the final. So I'm wondering, if you're Liverpool and you wanted to troll Real Madrid, you might invite Kylian Mbappe to the game. If you're Real Madrid, you might want to invite Sergio Ramos to the game, who happened
they're on
supposed
holidays.
to live here. They might want to come
I don't
back.
think they're in Paris.
You might want
I
to,
think
if
they're
you
on
really want to
holidays.
damage, you might want to invite Loris Karius to the game.
The 1981 Liverpool squad as well can come over.
Yeah.
You know, Parc des Princes, Stade de France is not too far. They can be there.
I'm loving it. I would love this WWE style trolling, but I have to say, I think these clubs are, much as I would love it from a tabloid point of view, these clubs are a little too classy for that. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.